This wonderful home has been the residence of the British Ambassador Giles Paxman for the past 4 years. He's now coming to the end of his term, and Viva TV have been given exclusive access to carry out the final television interview with him here before he sets off on a brand new and very exciting adventure. Ambassador, thank you very much for inviting us to what has been your home for the past 4 years. Although it's a home, it's also a very important place where a lot of business is done. What sort of things are done here?
Well, this house is a combination of a home, a hotel, a restaurant, a place where I entertain, a place where I do business. And so it's a working building. Every day there is something going on here. One event, two events, three events. It could be a lunch, it could be a dinner, it could be a lunch and a reception in the evening. But it's a place where I can receive people, particularly Spanish people, try to make them feel at home, get to know them, and do what diplomats essentially do, which is to build up contacts, build up networks, and try to get yourself in a position so that when you've got a problem, you know someone that you can pick up a phone to and say, "Hey Paco, I got a problem, can you help me with this?" And he wants to help you.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what diplomacy is about, and this house is a tool for achieving that.
So how much of it is actually you can call your own?
We have a bedroom upstairs and a little dressing room and a bathroom attached to it. That's where we sleep. And when we arrived, it's a choice that ambassadors have to make because ambassadorial residences tend to be fairly large.
Yeah.
You can either live in a little flat somewhere up under the eaves, as some people do and have to do. For example, when I was in Paris, the ambassador there, you couldn't possibly live in the whole of that house. It's a huge house, so they lived in a little flat up under the eaves. We've tried to use the whole of the house. This is a house that's not too big, so it is a house that you can live in, and we want the house to live. We want the house to feel lived in, so that when people come, they feel that this is someone's house. It's not some sort of corporate entertaining headquarters.
No, absolutely. Are you allowed to put your own sort of stamp on it? Are you allowed to decorate it and things like that?
That's discouraged. When it's beginning to look a bit tatty, when it needs a repaint, then we could generally choose the colours.
Yeah.
We also have always tried to put up one or two of our own pictures, but we're also lucky that we have pictures from the government art collection as well. So the artwork around the house is a mixture of ours and the government.
We're in this lovely garden. You can't have really enjoyed it that much. Do you have time to sort of sit down like this and enjoy this lovely garden?
Not at all during the week.
No.
A little bit at weekends. It depends on what's going on at weekends. But yes, we do get some value out of it. But again, the garden is an asset. We do a lot of events in the garden, trade events. We do the Queen's birthday party here in the garden. We do other big events, big parties in the summer. So the garden is used as well. But it is a particularly nice garden.
It is lovely.
We're very fortunate. We have a lawn that's almost an English lawn, and we love it.
You had the royal visit here. You held a party here. That must be one of the sort of highlights of your time here.
Having royal visitors is always terrific fun. Our royal family are a huge magnet, and they're a great asset, I think, to Britain. People want to meet members of the British royal family.
Absolutely.
And that gives you a terrific opportunity to be in touch with lots of people, to make lots of people feel wanted, to make them feel that perhaps they owe you a favour because you've invited them to meet the Prince of Wales, and these are really important things that we can do. We had a good party here, and we used the party here really as a means of thanking a lot of the people around Spain in the British community who work for voluntary organisations, who do so much work for our fellow country people around the country. And they are, I think, some of the most important people in Spain, actually. With a community this large, to have those volunteers, that network of volunteers around the country, and a lot of them in the Alicante region, who do such wonderful work for their fellow country people. And we thought this would be a way of saying thank you to them. We invited them here, and I think they all enjoyed it. And I know the Prince of Wales enjoyed meeting them.
Absolutely. This is also a good way of saving money because, when the Prime Minister's in Spain, for example, you can put them up here. It saves money on hotel security as well. So you're saving the taxpayer money as well by having this residence.
Well, absolutely. We have a lot of ministers who come to stay here. They will generally bring 1 or 2 people with them, parliamentarians, business people sometimes, although business people tend to go and stay in hotels, senior civil servants. So we have a lot of visitors here, and obviously it's cheaper for them to stay with us. We can provide a catering service at fairly low cost. Actually, it looks good, yeah. and we have the family silver, or rather the government silver, but actually it doesn't really cost all that much to lay on.
Yeah, in this area there are a number of residences and a couple of embassies as well, I believe. Do you actually go to each other's and entertain other ambassadors here?
Every country has its national day. For us, it's the Queen's birthday party. For a lot of countries, it's the day when they achieved their independence, because most countries achieved independence at some time or another. We never did. We've always been independent. But every country will have its national day, and they will normally invite their key contacts from around Madrid to a national day party, which will generally be a glass of wine and a few nibblies. And they will invite all of the other ambassadors. They quite often invite defence attaches, and they invite their main contacts in government and in business. I try to go to as many of those as I can for 2 reasons. First of all, because I think it's a nice thing to do, to show that you are paying your respects to their country. But also, I think more importantly, because they are really quite a useful tool for me to find out what's going on around town, to talk to important people. I think a lot of people have this image of diplomats as roving around some unending, wonderful cocktail circuit, eating Ferrero Rocher. In fact, for me, the receptions are a way of actually meeting people in relatively convivial circumstances. And I've over the years, I've developed a sort of cocktail party technique. I will go in, I'd give myself 20 minutes, half an hour or whatever it is. I will work out who it is I want to talk to. I will talk to them, perhaps have a beer, and then leave, and perhaps go on to the next cocktail, because sometimes there can be two or three of these on the same evening. But you can get a lot of business done that way.
I can imagine, but also I'm amazed at your stamina, being able to work, because you're on call 24 hours a day. You're either at the embassy or you're working here as well. It really is a tough life.
During the week, I am generally working all the time. From the moment I get up, I'll quite often start with a breakfast, and I will go on through the day. I could have a lunch. If I don't, I generally sit at my desk and look at my computer. And then in the evening, I can have 1 or 2 cocktails and a dinner. Or we can be entertaining people in this house. At the weekends, less. But the good thing about all this, although this sounds rather grim, it's not actually as grim as all that, because my job is such a fantastic job that quite often you don't really know when you're working and when you're not working. Yeah. If I'm invited out to dinner by a group of senior business people or politicians or whatever, you will invariably have the most interesting conversations. You will meet the most interesting people, and you will have a good time. So is that work? Is it not work? I don't know, but it does take up a lot of time.
I can imagine. This is my first time in Madrid. Do you enjoy it as a city?
I think Madrid's a great city. I think it's a really very underrated city. It's a city that, in a way, doesn't have any of the massive tourist attractions. It doesn't have an Eiffel Tower. It doesn't have a Colosseum. And because of that, I think it's less known by tourists. But this is a city where you can live really, really well. There are nice parks, wonderful restaurants, great sporting possibilities. It's a city also that's very easy to get out of. Unlike some of the bigger cities like London, from this house I can be up walking in the hills in sort of 40 minutes in the most wonderful areas with very few people. You can go skiing 40 minutes away from here. So it's a great city, and of course it's surrounded by lots of other places that are very interesting to visit, places like Segovia and Toledo and Aranjuez and all these other places. So yeah, I love it.
As an ambassador, on your very rare days off, can you sort of go out and be anonymous and be a sort of typical tourist?
Oh, absolutely, yes, absolutely. We sometimes meet people that we know, or people that know us, but yes, we can go away and blend into the background.
And what sort of things do you like to do?
Well, actually, my big passion is sailing. And Madrid is not the best place for sailing. You can't get much further away from the sea than Madrid. We do a lot of walking.
Yeah.
I ride my bicycle. I go out a lot on my bike and go down to the Casa de Campo, or sometimes just ride around the streets of Madrid and explore. But a lot of the time we walk. We read, we travel. Like travelling around Spain a lot, and I've been to now virtually all areas of Spain, either officially or unofficially, and that's one of the great attractions of the job.
Do you have any particular favourite parts of Spain?
I always think the favourites question is always a difficult one, because
it's very unfair.
Very often you're comparing chalk with cheese. It's a bit like saying, do you prefer the Beatles or Mozart? I mean, how are you going to compare the Beatles and Mozart? How are you going to compare Galicia with Andalusia? So I don't think I really do have favourites. No. I think the best places are always the places you've never been before.
Yeah, you're being a very good diplomat. I'm interested in the whole handover process. You're coming to the end of your time here as ambassador. When does the sort of handover process actually start?
Well, my successor, Simon Manley, who I know very well and who will be a very good ambassador, has been preparing for this job now for 2 or 3 months. He's been learning Spanish, and he's been reading up about Spain. Obviously, we've been passing him lots of information. He is now in the UK meeting quite a lot of people who are involved in Spain in some way, particularly in the business sector. So he has been preparing himself. When I leave, I will leave a set of notes for him, my own personal reflections, things that he might like to do, things that he might like not to do, and that will be handed over to him. I will leave here on the Saturday morning after my last week here. He will arrive on the Saturday evening, and there will be a completely seamless transition.
Really? Yeah. Just like that. And there literally is a handover note.
There are lots of little handover notes, contacts, notes about the way in which I communicate, for example, within the embassy, what the governance structures in the embassy are like, how we run the embassy, how we relate to the consulates, all these sorts of issues, information about the residence here and how the residence runs, and the sort of things that we find work and the things that we find don't work so well. Because
this is his first ambassador's position. Yeah. And he's coming straight in at the sort of top job, isn't he? So additional pressure on him.
Simon is a very good diplomat. I think that he will relish the pressure.
But it's nice that you've been through the process, so you can sort of steer him in the right direction. When you came here, were you given the same luxury, if you like?
Well, I had 2 advantages. One was that I'd been an ambassador before, of course,
Mexico.
So I knew how to be an ambassador. The other was that the lady that I was taking over here, my predecessor here, was also my predecessor in Mexico.
That's right, yes.
So we knew each other very well. We were able to have lots of chats, and it was really very easy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you were ambassador in Mexico for 4 years, ambassador here for 4 years. Is that the sort of time frame that you've given yourself?
I think it's the time frame that the Foreign Service gives to us. I think on the whole, one of the few certainties in a diplomatic career is that when you're posted somewhere, you generally know how long you're going to be there.
Right.
And they tend to be chunks of 3 or 4 years. It can be less if you're in a really difficult country. If you're serving, for example, in Afghanistan, or in an area where there's a war going on, or where there's severe security problems. But on the whole, it's 3 or 4 years. And as a diplomat, you get used to living your life in chunks of 3 or 4 years. And in a way, that's quite a healthy discipline, because you arrive somewhere, you've got lots of ideas, you know what you want to do. And I've always felt that if you haven't really achieved most of what you want to do, you've never achieved everything, but if you haven't achieved most of what you want to do in a period of 3 or 4 years, then maybe in any case it's time to sort of move on and make way for someone else to come and have a go.
So have you achieved most of what you set out to do?
I think I have, yes, I think I have. I think I've managed to develop the relationship between Britain and Spain. I think that we've seen Spain going through some very difficult times, and we've focused very carefully on the challenges that poses, but also the opportunities for developing the bilateral relationship. I feel particularly pleased about the work that we're doing here on the consular side. As you know, we have the biggest and busiest consular network in the world.
Yeah.
We have a lot of British people living in Spain, a lot more living here part of the year. We have huge numbers of tourists. Again, the number of tourists is going up this year, and this creates all sorts of demands. But again, it creates possibilities when you get those sorts of volumes of people living in one place, or volumes of tourists coming. It means that you can work out the most efficient and effective way of dealing with the problems that arise. And that's why I think the consular network that we have in Spain has the reputation for being a sort of trailblazer in trying out new techniques, new methods of working. And one of the things that we're working on a lot at the moment, and this is, I think, the general tendency throughout the Foreign Office, throughout our consular services worldwide, is to try to get away from the old idea that we're here to help people when they get in trouble. We are here to help people when they get in trouble. If you get into serious trouble in Spain, I have a very highly trained, really high quality team who will help you. But what we're trying to do as well is to get upstream a little bit and try to stop people getting into trouble in the first place. And that's why we're doing so much work with the media and with other methods of outreach to try to get out to visitors to Spain and also British people who live here some very simple messages about how you can avoid your holiday in the sun turning into a nightmare experience. How, if you're living here, you can prepare for the sort of difficulties that you might possibly have, so that if those difficulties do occur, they remain difficulties and they don't become dramas. Yeah. So the sorts of things that we're asking people to do, for example, is first of all, check the validity of your passport. And I think in some ways this is more difficult for people who live here, because they think, well, we're here now, we're not travelling immediately, so the passport goes in the drawer and you forget about it. It's very easy simply to make a note in the diary of when your passport needs renewing. If you don't, and you find out that you've got to travel overseas, it's going to be very disruptive and it's going to be very expensive for you to get a temporary passport. Absolutely. Tell people who are coming to visit you what they need to do before they come out. Quite often the people who live here know, for example, how they're going to get their health care, but the people who are coming out, the family members who are coming out to visit them, may not know that. Tell them to get their European health insurance card, tell them to get comprehensive travel insurance, because if they don't and something happens to them, then again that holiday could turn into a nightmare, and these are such simple things to do. So that's another message that we're trying to get out. And the third message is try to make contact with your local authorities. A lot of British people who live here don't speak Spanish, and I understand that, but more and more local authorities now do have people in their offices who will speak English. Go along to your local town hall and find out what sort of services they're offering. I find a lot of British people here would like to integrate more with their local communities, but find it difficult to do so because of the language barrier. Just go along to the town hall and find out what is on offer there, and you'll find that it's probably more than you might imagine. And they may well be the people, the social services, the emergency services, the health services, who may be able to help you if you've got to get a problem. And those are the people that British people should be turning to if they get difficulties, rather than coming to the consulates, because we have such a high volume of cases, we have to be fairly selective about the things that we will do and the things that we know that we won't. And we have to focus on the most serious and demanding cases. And finally, I would encourage everyone to get on the British government's new website, www.gov.uk. You can find out so much about what the British government does and what services are offered in every area, from tax to health to social services. Just get on www.gov.uk and have a look around, and you may find the answers to a lot of questions that you didn't even know you had. Yeah, you really have embraced new technology. I know you have a presence on YouTube, for example, with lots of films on there, and you've also allowed cameras into the consulates, which has been quite revealing and entertaining as well. And you've got film crews back again. Is this something, a conscious effort to again highlight the work
and educate people?
Absolutely. We had to be continually updating our communications effort. We're making a big push at the moment on digital media, on social media, partly because a lot of the customers that we're trying to get to, the young people who are coming out to Spain, who may be going to Ibiza or to Benicassim or wherever, don't tend to access the same media as perhaps we do. So we've got to be getting our messages out on Facebook, on Twitter, and on the things that younger people look at. And we have, I think, quite a successful operation in doing that. We're getting an increasing number of hits, an increasing number of visits. I have some very capable people in the embassy who are running all of this, and that's a very important way of getting our messages across. As for inviting people into consulates, well, yes, I think it's important that people should understand how consulates work, and that they should understand the sort of pressures and some of the cases that our colleagues have to deal with. I have huge admiration for our consular colleagues, and I've watched those programs, and of course these are all people that I know very well.
Exactly.
And I sit there and I think, good on you. You handled that really well. But also you realise that some of these cases are hugely distressing. Young people who will come out to Spain, and because they haven't taken the right precautions, or because of moment stupidity, often I have to say alcohol fueled, they can ruin their lives. And these things are really depressing, and they're particularly depressing because they are preventable. But at the end of the day, when people get into this sort of trouble, a road traffic accident, drug abuse, balcony incidents or whatever, it's my colleagues in the consulates throughout the country that have to pick up the pieces with the families.
Sometimes.
And it's hugely difficult and demanding work, and they do it terrifically well. But I would rather they didn't have to do it at all. I would rather people took the precautions before they came out.
You've had quite a challenging time. I remember when we spoke last, we were speaking about your time in Mexico, for example, and I think in the first week you had to deal with a big earthquake. And now you've been in Spain during this terrible economic crisis. Do you sort of thrive on that, or do you wish you'd been here during easier times?
Yes. One of the things I used to do in Mexico, particularly during the summer season, the first thing I used to do when I got up in the morning was to look at the American National Hurricane Center website and see where the tropical cyclones were forming. There was a time in Spain when the first thing I did in the morning was rush down and get the Financial Times and see what the risk premium was. Happily, that period is now in the past. Happily, I think the worst of the crisis is past as far as Spain is concerned. Oh yes, I do think so. I do think that the economy is now going to start to grow again. I'm waiting with bated breath to see what the figures for the third quarter are going to be. But I do think that both the global context is starting to improve, and also the reforms that have been put in place in Spain are starting to have an impact. So I think that the economy will start to grow again. I think it's going to be slow at first, because there is still a big need for deleveraging in the Spanish economy. But I do think it's going to start to grow again. But I think from my point of view, we arrived in Spain in 2009, and Spain was already at that point in a crisis. We will leave in 2013, 4 years later, and I hope that Spain will be coming out of that crisis. But basically, we have just seen a Spain that has been going through some really difficult economic issues. I think from a diplomatic point of view, obviously that's interesting, because in many ways, from a diplomatic point of view, it's more interesting to see a country that is confronting challenges, facing up to them, making the necessary changes, and pulling out of them, than a country that's simply going well all the time.
Sure. They're still building in Spain, as we can hear in the background. One of the major challenges, though, is the youth unemployment, which is horrendously high. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel with that respect?
I think that the worst of the unemployment crisis has arrived. I do think it's going to take a long time to reabsorb the unemployment that we have. I think, incidentally, the figures, the official figures, suggest a picture that's probably a little worse than it is. As we know, in Spain, there are people who theoretically are not working, but in fact do have some form of income.
Yeah.
There are family networks. There are shock absorbers built in. Having said that, the situation is distressing.
Yeah.
And as you travel around Spain and you see the way in which a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet, then there is clearly a very serious problem there. I think the labour reform that the government put through last year is starting to have an effect. It is starting to make the labour market more flexible. I think it is also starting to bring labour costs down, which is making Spanish firms more competitive. And I think because of that, we are seeing some investment start to come back into Spain in some of the most competitive sectors like the automotive sector, for example, where there have been some quite big recent investments back in Spain. And as this investment starts to flow again, as businesses start to grow again, that unemployment will be absorbed. What's important is that alongside the encouraging growth in the economy, we do need to make sure that the people who are currently unemployed do have the skills to be able to take up the jobs that are going to be on offer as the economy grows again. So that obviously requires a big effort on training and making sure that those people are in a position to take advantage of the opportunities. And I think actually that's an area where Britain can help in Spain, because we do have quite a lot of experience of helping businesses and helping individuals to get the right match of skills.
When's the last time you sat down with Mr. Rajoy?
Ambassadors don't on the whole sit down personally with the Prime Minister. No, just about, you have access to just about everyone else that you want to see in Spain. But on the whole, Mr. Rajoy speaks to Mr. Cameron. But I do speak to all the people around Mr. Rajoy and all the people in government as well.
Yeah. When's the last time you spoke to Mr. Cameron?
Mr. Cameron, I think the last time I spoke to him actually was when he came out here and had lunch with Mr. Rajoy.
Oh, right.
And we had lunch in the Moncloa.
Yeah. People would find it very strange if I didn't ask you about the current situation with Gibraltar. From your perspective, what's happening?
Well, I think we always have our ups and downs with Gibraltar. I think there is a lot of history there. There is 300 years of history, and every now and then that bubbles up and create tensions. The tensions recently have been around issues around fishing, around the environment, obviously the unacceptable delays at the border, and this has created difficulties. It has created tension. I keep on coming back though to two really key points. The first point in all of this is that the British government's commitment to the people of Gibraltar is absolutely firm. People of Gibraltar will remain British for as long as they want to remain British, and that is one constant in all of this. The second constant in all of this, as far as I'm concerned, is that the only way in which we can manage the Gibraltar problem is by doing everything we possibly can to enable the people of Gibraltar and the people of the neighbouring part of Spain, the Campo de Andalucía, to live and work together as harmoniously as they can, and to take advantage of the wealth, the economic opportunities that they create by working together. So, for example, Spanish workers going over and working in Gibraltar, Gibraltarians investing in the neighbouring part of Spain. And what we have to do as government is be continually looking for ways of encouraging those opportunities and making sure that we get the maximum advantage out of them. And that means that, you know, when problems do arise, what we have to be able to do is to sit down and talk about them in a sensible sort of way and work out a way forward.
Moving on to more positive things, as I said, you're coming to the end of your time here. What are some of the highlights that you'll be taking away with you?
The highlights, Spain, obviously, the sunshine, the sunshine, the country, the huge variety of the country, the people. We have met so many people in Spain. We know so many people in Spain. It's one of the interesting things of a diplomatic life. When you arrive in a country, you know nobody. And that first event that you go to, where there are 300 people there and you walk into the room, and you say, crikey, I don't know anyone here. As you go on, you get to know more and more people, and now when I walk into that room, I probably know 2/3 of the people in the room, or half the people. It depends on the type of event. Those people, those contacts, all the things that we've been able to do together are things that I will miss. I hope I won't be cutting myself off completely from Spain, but they are things that I will miss. Other highlights, obviously, the royal visit was a great highlight for me. To be able to be travelling around in a car with the Prince of Wales from one event to another event, it makes you feel very important. It is a huge ego trip, but it's also a great opportunity to promote some interest in Britain. I think what I shall also miss in a way, though, is travelling around the country and meeting British people.
Really?
Particularly, as I was mentioning earlier, some of these volunteers who are doing work in the community, the sort of work that they're doing, and the way in which they have been prepared to devote a part of their lives to helping others. And I think this is, I think this is really important.
Mm. And what's next for you?
What's next for me? Well, immediately, the first thing I should be doing once we've got ourselves back to the UK and sorted out 20 years worth of baggage, because we have been on the road for now for nearly 20 years. Once we've got that sorted out, I'm going to be doing something I've always wanted to do, which I'm going to go and sail across the Atlantic in a boat.
Oh, wow.
And I suspect that, providing the weather isn't too challenging, that will give me plenty of time to reflect on what I want to do thereafter. And what I see myself doing perhaps is having a mix of activities. It will be nice to have an activity that is remunerative but slightly less demanding than the one that I do at the moment, but something that puts some money into my bank account. And then perhaps something else that enables me to give something back to the community, maybe through NGOs or through teaching or those sorts of activities. But I'd like to have a mix of activities. I also want to do something different. And actually one of the interesting things is when you reach my sort of position where I'm leaving the Foreign Office, and I've decided that I want to go.
Oh, you are going completely?
I'm definitely leaving the Foreign Office. And I'm in a position in life where I can actually decide what I want to do.
Yeah.
And this is really quite an interesting position to be in for someone who's always more or less done what they've been told to do. You go there and you sort this out, or you
absolutely.
Here are your instructions on that. Go and deliver this.
I was actually going to talk about that, because it's going to be a huge culture shock, because so much is done for you and arranged for you. Car tax and all the mundane things. You're going to have to be doing that yourself now.
I think a lot of people say, won't it be a bit of a shock to the system to come down and have to make your own breakfast?
Yes.
I don't think so, actually, because in a way, all of the systems that surround an ambassador come with the disadvantages as well as the advantages in terms of your sort of personal freedom. I have to live a more regulated life now than I hope that I will have to do when it's just Segolene and I. I hope that if I decide that I want to stay in bed for another half an hour, I'll be able to stay in bed for another half an hour. And so in a way, the freedoms that come from not being an ambassador are actually quite attractive.
When's the last time you had a home, a proper home? The
last time we lived in our family home was 16 years ago.
Gee whiz.
So it will be actually quite nice to be in our own home, to be able to paint the rooms the colour that we want to paint the rooms, and have our own pictures on the walls. And also to see all of our friends again. Yeah. Because in many ways the best friends are the ones that you've had for the longest time. And one of the disadvantages of living one's life in bite-sized chunks is that you can meet some very good, very interesting, quite good friends. But if you only have 3 or 4 years to develop a friendship, it will probably never get to the stage of the friendships that you've had with people that you're at university with, or your neighbours that you've known for a lot longer. And one of the challenges actually that we're facing now, just as we pack our bags and try and decide what baggage we want to keep, it's also working out what emotional attachments you want to keep, because you cannot possibly keep friendships with all the people that we've known very well here. So what are the friendships? What are the emotional links that are most important to you? And how are you going to make those transportable to your new life? Yeah.
We're sort of coming to the end of our chat. We did a bit of a poll. We were sort of asking people if they could pose a question to you, you know, what would it be? And we sort of got the usual, you know, the cost of replacing passports, why are they so expensive, questions about healthcare and other bits and pieces. But the one overriding question that people wanted me to ask you, and one which I think you've got a personal insight into, is were you shocked when your brother grew a beard?
I was approached by various representatives of the media in the UK for my advice on, as a perennial beard wearer, what advice I would give to Jeremy. I wasn't shocked. I learnt about it through the media. It's not the first time he's grown a beard.
Right.
They tend to be fairly short-lived. To be honest, I'm not sure whether he's still got it at the moment. I haven't seen him recently. So shock, no. Beards tend to be things that, for the unserious beard wearer, grow over the summer and then disappear. I regard myself as a serious beard wearer, and mine has been with me for most of my life.
Yeah, we had also a lot of messages wishing you well, and thank you for all your work here, and we'd like to say the same to you as well. Ambassador, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's been good talking to you.